Hey Kenny, how's it going? Welcome. All right, we already got 10 people. Awesome. Thanks for tuning in, guys. And let me know if you can hear me okay and if you can see the screen okay. It's not blurry or anything. Past midnight from Spain. Well, thanks for staying up. You don't have to stay up for me. This will be recorded. So thanks for tuning in. How's it going, Mark? How's it going, Hamatz? Yasi, Kosh, how's it going? Yeah, good to see everybody. And I've got a collection here of stocks that people suggest on Twitter, but if you guys in the chart have any suggestions that you want me to talk about, hear my take on it, feel free to leave them down below in the comment section, or in the live chat, actually. Jim, how's it going? Thanks for the feedback. All right, we'll give it just one more minute or so to make sure everybody trickles in. From London, awesome. Thanks, Paul. Infu, okay, we'll add that to the list. Joseph, how's it going, man? Bill, how's it going? My biggest supporter. Hope you're doing okay. Hope everybody's having a great weekend. Crete, wow, that's awesome. Yeah, TGNA and Snap, I think, are all already on this list. But Ray, how's it going? Adam, all right, sure. I believe that's a semiconductor name, pretty volatile. Like that. Bonjour, les Français, ça va? Hello from Brazil. Wow, you guys are from all over. That's awesome. All right, I guess we'll get going. I don't really have a specific plan for today, but really just to go through the stocks that you guys suggested. But if you guys want to hear my take on the market or my weekly watch list, you can check out those videos on my channel. I've already posted those this weekend. So yeah, I guess we'll dive in with the stocks that you guys suggested. And we'll take a look at them in both TC2000 and Marketsmith. So starting, let's do alphabetically. I believe Diamond wanted my take on ABNB versus EXPE. So I should actually go to Marketsmith, take a look at ABNB. And this one is very whippy. It doesn't really have a defined structure here. It's not tight here against the moving averages. So it's not super on my radar. I was watching it here and actually got stopped out on this down day, but we'll see if it can tighten up again and challenge that 50 SMA. But overall, not really any growth numbers here. But what I do like is there's already a bunch of funds in this, and not just a lot of funds, a lot of high quality funds. And these funds are able to do really extensive research. They have the best analysts in the world. So they believe in this company. So if this does shape up and I can define my risk, I'll be watching this one pretty closely. But that versus EXPE is kind of a play on reopening because people want to travel, they need a place to stay. Airbnb, a lot of people my age, a little bit younger, don't want to pay for costly hotels, so they might try to find a good deal at Airbnb. But also Expedia is another way to find a hotel room as well as tickets, car rentals, all of that. So this is actually trending a lot well, nice and tight against the 21 EMA. So the chart actually looks better here. Once again, not really any growth numbers, not really any great estimates, although you have a huge jump for 2022, increasing fund ownership, no high quality funds though. But in terms of just the chart, this has a nice earnings gap up, or actually I believe that was news gap up when all the vaccines came out. But it's trending nicely, found support at the 50 SMA area, and now it's finding support at the 21 EMA area. So in terms of chart, you can see how tight this is relative to A, B, and B. Greg, how's it going? Give this guy a raise. Yeah, awesome. And yeah, that's kind of ABNB versus EXPE. So let's go back to TC2000 and we'll just go down the list. And if you guys have any questions along the way, I'll try to be watching the chat as much as I can. Yeah, we'll definitely talk about DKNG. Awesome. Yeah, let's add MOS and Lulu to the list. Okay. So ACBI, this is a banking stock. A lot of them look like this, pretty tight after a nice run up. Not really my style to play these, but nice upside reversal. And this day, even though it was a pocket pivot day, it had a pretty poor closing range. So we'll see. There's kind of a pivot right here at this high, and this was close to a 2-2 reversal. Didn't quite close above this high, but a nice upside reversal action here, and it's pretty tight. Let's go to the week. It looks like this is definitely a 3 weeks tight Actually, it's not quite 3 weeks tight. It has to be within 1.5% these closes, but still very, very tight. Nice prior uptrend. But in terms of traditional growth stocks, this isn't really a classic one. Twitter, Benjamin, you can go ahead and watch my weekly watch list video. I go through Snap, Twitter. Actually, let me just pull that up. Here you go. This is my focus list. I go through each of these stocks, 23 this week in under 20 minutes. So go kind of rapid fire. But anyway, I go through 23 stocks, and SI, Copen, LRCX, SLQT, Futu, SQ, all of these. I talk about their fundamentals, technicals. So if you want kind of my takes on those, I won't really be covering that just to save time here. But these are definitely worth watching, and that's kind of my focus list. So go ahead and check out that video if you haven't yet. After staying here and watching the stream, of course. But yeah, ACBI, baking stock pretty tight. Not really on my focus list, given that growth stocks are starting to work again and looking pretty good, shaping up, breaking out to all-time highs and all of that. Amazon, really powerful move here. You had to kind of pivot here. Really strong move once again on Friday, finishing right at the highs. And it's right at this kind of point here. Trend lines, pretty subjective. But I bet you a lot of people are watching this spot, so I wouldn't be surprised if it kind of consolidates, builds out a little bit of a handle before moving on forward, moving on upward rather. The RS line is moving up as well, so it's a good sign for tech in general that the big caps are doing well. We've also got Google, Netflix, they're all trending well. Facebook especially has been very, very strong, so these are all acting very well. Apps I covered in my weekly watch list video, but just very quickly, it's still pretty wide here, about 10%. So one more contraction would be nice. Back to all this cluster of the KAMAs, that'd be awesome. Back to around the 80 area, but it was a nice inside day on Friday, so it looks pretty good. Ross, how's it going? Good to see you. Scott, how's it going? Yeah, Trip is also along the lines of Expedia. That also looks better than A, B, and B. But I like all these blue bars. Consolidation pulling back on below average volume looks pretty good. And my dog's right over there. So if you hear anything weird, it's just my dog. Let's see. James has a question. How to make money in stocks 3x and taking a lot of notes. Can anybody help explain the thinking and rationale why reputable growth investors and top performing mutual funds buy stocks that do not meet the minimum IBD rating requirements? Those ratings are great and they're awesome for scanning. But a lot of stocks, for instance, the RS rating can be pretty poor because it's just been basing for a long time and just starting to break out. So that can be too low. Likewise, earnings, a stock could be trading on sales growth versus earnings growth. It's not yet profitable, so that EPS rating can be very low. So I look at those, but it's not a hard and fast rule. I care more about the price action, the actual quarterly earnings growth, the annual estimates, the fund ownership, and quality fund ownership. Those are kind of the main things that I like to look at. Okay, cool. Let's keep on moving. Yeah, just trying to see if there's any other great questions. So composite rating, EPS rating. Yeah, so, and also not everybody follows the IBD rating system, right? So for instance, Jonah, he's a big proponent of TMDX, DMTK, MWK, which are big growth stocks, but they might not be have the strongest IBD ratings simply because they don't quite have the earnings sales growth yet. So some people are just fishing in different ponds. There's many different ways to trade, and not everybody follows CanSlim. So yeah, I hope that answered your question, James. Okay, cool. Moving on, we've got ASO, strong move up. This is a recent IPO and it's in IPO advance phase. Looks strong, found support at near the 50 SMA, a nice breakout on volume. I don't like how this pullback, it had a gap down on high volume, but it did hold here. But as of right now, it's not tight enough for me to consider an entry. It has to tighten up here, and a pullback to 21 EMA would be pretty constructive if it is on decreased volume. But overall, if you didn't catch the breakout, using this as a pivot or a descending trend line right here, there goes my dog. Let him out. then it's it's a little bit too late for an entry into this stock. You have to wait until you can manage your risk. Yeah, Copen, I'm watching for next week. You can watch my video about that. I talk about the setups and also the fundamental analysis. Atom is something that I saw a couple of people talking about on Twitter recently. It's a super volatile name. It's basing right now. It's pretty far from highs, 50%. So I'm interested if it can establish itself above the 50 SMA, 21 EMA. And yeah, if it does hold this level, I'm watching it, but it's not one of my top priorities at the moment. Yeah, HYFM, good pick. Yeah, I was watching this one. So this is it's related to marijuana business, I believe, and yeah, hydroponics. So it's kind of GRWG-esque. It's kind of a pick and shovels play on the marijuana business boom. Overall, nice pocket pivots here, higher low here. So it's starting to build out the space nicely. And yeah, it's definitely one to watch. I believe it has very strong earnings. Let's go over to Marketsmith, HYFM. RS rating, this is one reason why you don't always have to look at the RS rating. This is very low. It has had a very strong pullback, but it is a recent IPO, so this is a little bit lower than normal. But a nice earnings estimates, nice sales growth, a lot of quality fund ownership, and a lot of funds already in this stock. So yeah, this is one to watch. I'm not quite sure why it's in the machinery general industrial group. They should have an own weed group, for instance. But yeah, definitely one that's interesting. SWKS, yeah, that's also in my yeah, it is a little bit loose, but numbers are better, but better numbers than GRWG. Is it better numbers than GRWG? I believe GRWG. I don't know. I kind of like the GRWG numbers better. Very strong earnings, super estimates. Definitely better fund ownership than GRWG for sure. Yeah. Yeah, pin snap and Twitter, SWKS. I talk about that in my weekly watches video, so I don't want to spend too much time talking about that while I've got you guys live. But yeah, you can check out that video if you want to hear my analysis on those. Going back to Carrier, nice and tight. I'm not sure if it's 3 weeks tight. No, just 2 weeks or so. But definitely showing some RS above all the KAMAs, trending nicely. You've got this longer term base right here, and it's consolidating nicely above that. So if it pulls back on below average volume, undercut and rally through here, through these pivots, there's definitely a bunch of ways to play this. CHPT, this looks like a SPAC, not really my wheelhouse, but I don't know the fundamentals at all in this name. Let me do CHPT. Electric vehicles, yeah, so a lot of these got hit very, very hard. Not all of them will come back, so that's not really in my wheelhouse, so there is some nice volume coming in recently and is starting to tighten up, although it lost a little bit on Friday on lower volume. Yeah, that's a good question. So Maz Cully says, kind of talk about ARK. So this actually looks very similar to Tesla. That's interesting. But anyway, this is the ARK K Innovation ETF, the flagship fund. Nice and tight here on lower volume. It's decently far from the highs, but I mean, if the major stocks start working again, this will start moving up. I know that's very high quality expertise talking there. If the stocks in the fund start working, this fund will do well. But anyway, it's being constructive. We'll see if it can move up on volume, retake the 50 SMA, and fill out the space and approach all-time highs. This got hit pretty hard, but it looks very similar to Tesla, which is also tightening up on lower volume and looking pretty constructive. Let's see. Trader J asks, what indicators do you watch to gauge if the market is getting toppy and about to make a big correction? Well, one thing I do is I look at the indexes one by one, analyze their trend. Are they above the key moving averages? Are there signs of distribution, meaning distribution days are piling up and clustering? Are we very extended from some key moving averages? Are we historically further than we've ever been from the 50 SMA? That's something I watch. And if we go over to the 10-week check, down here is basically a plot of how far, what percentage we are from that 50 SMA. So I can see, and I've marked up 6.5 is often a point where we start to pull back a little bit. So that's one way. I also watch the leading stocks. I keep track of potential new leadership. And if these start getting hit, they start showing signs of distribution, start breaking the KMAs, like SC did back here, that's a sign that my style of trading isn't going to work as well. I also listen to how my own trading is doing. If I've gotten stopped out 4 times in a row on new positions, it's time to scale back for me because what I'm doing isn't working. So that's kind of the signs that I'm watching to indicate potentially when the market is ready to pull back and consolidate before potentially resuming the uptrend. And it's obvious that the RK fund looks like Tesla because Tesla is such a large holding in there. All right, going back to the chart requests, but keep the questions coming. It's awesome. And yeah, let's keep going. Cobb, nice breakout on Friday. Nice tight area here against all the key moving averages. That would have been a nice place to define risk. A gap up on volume, harder to find risk on these 2 days. But if you're already in it, you've got a nice cushion, and it's right at all-time highs. Actually, not quite all-time highs, so it's kind of a turnaround story, but overall, a nice, strong uptrend at this moment. And signs of a character change. Looks pretty good. DBI, nice and tight here against that 10 SMA. This is the 4 EMA, 10 SMA, 21 EMA, and 50 SMA. RS line, slight uptrend, just trending really well. This also looks like it's a longer-term downtrend, but recovering well. But once again, not really my cup of tea. This looks like a recovery play versus a growth stock. DKNG consolidating right near this really important price level, but it could have a nice power 3 breakout through all those moving averages at the same bar, as well as this pivot, pulling back on below average volume. A little bit whippy back in here, but a lot of eyes were on this stock, and now probably people have moved on to other things. So potentially this could work now, but I don't like the look of this bar. Pretty low closing range on high volume, but it has recovered since. Definitely one to watch. Not top of my list, but definitely a decent one with a great story behind it as well. David asks, what do the blue volume bars indicate? That basically indicates that it's a 10-day pocket pivot volume signature, meaning that this day was an up day or a strong daily closing range day. So basically it closed high in the range from the high to the low. And that volume is higher than any down volume of the past 10 bars here. So I find it's really helpful to indicate accumulation within a base, and also on the breakouts, you want to see very high volume. I'm starting to think SQ, a lot of pocket pivots in a row here, and you can see right here off the anchored VWAP, and it was also a consolidation pivot breakout. You had a pocket pivot. So I find them very useful. And it's just it's another way of determining whether the volume was above average for that day. You can also use, of course, moving averages. I've got the 20-day. You can also use a 50-day. There's many different ways to do it. Any specific chart patterns you find to be most reliable? Breakouts and pullbacks is mostly what I trade. Tight areas, that's what I like the most. Let's keep moving. And Expedia, we talked about GoPro. Pretty tight here last week. Breakout here. Once again, you've got nice volume coming in here along the bottom side of this cup. Consolidation right above this pivot. Nice pullback. So even if you miss this entry, the true breakout, it gapped right through the pivot. It pulled back right to it, gave you another shot. So this looks pretty good. Pocket pivot volume on Friday. And I don't know if this is rainy all-time highs or, this is a recovery play. But overall, I don't know if they've come up with new products or services, but definitely if you're interested in the company, something's going on with the price action. So maybe they've changed the company a little bit. Sid wants to look at Orgo. This was on my focus list last week. I didn't take it. It was kind of a short consolidation, but it had a breakout from these two kind of inside days within this bar, 3-bar break here, and breaking this pivot, and then a breakout follow through on this day, although not the strongest closing range. So maybe this needs to retest. This was a very short consolidation, but once again, a lot of volume showing up here, institutional accumulation signs here. Looks pretty good. And if we go over to Marketsmith, You can see nice estimates for 2022, great earnings the past 2 quarters, increasing fund ownership, but no high quality funds. So a lot of the stuff that I look for, it ticks those boxes. We've got a question from someone. What is your profit taking strategy? Usually when stock breaks a key moving average that it has been respecting for a long time, like the 21 EMA, that's when I'll exit the position. I'll do it in kind of portions. So maybe I'll use a 10 day, then the 21 EMA, and then the 50 SMA for that final 1/3. Or I'll also sell into strength if it gets too extended from those key moving averages. Jack, you gotta watch my video, dude. I talk about Futu in my weekly watches video. I caught you. But yeah, I talk about all these stocks I'm sure you guys want to hear about in my weekly watches video. So maybe somebody can post the URL to that in the chat. That'd be very helpful. But these are kind of my focus for the next week. I think they're pretty good setups and a lot of stuff in the social media space that I'm watching, semiconductors, Lyft, Uber, and also fintech, UPSC, SQ. Those look pretty good as well. SLQT, if it consolidates here under this pivot, I'm watching that as well. He says he just got home from work. Sure. No, that's awesome. Yeah, no problem. I'll cover Futu just for you, Jack. Thanks for tuning in, dude. This looks really good. It is a 50% deep base, and I know Ray doesn't like this one. If you're watching Ray, he says this is flawed, but overall strong move off the bottom, good volume here. Tight pullback to the 21 EMA and 50 SMA, but a nice breakout from the short downward trend line. Inside day, it's acting well right now. Since this point, it's acting very well. After I think it reported earnings in here, it kind of leaked and broke expectations and those key moving averages, but it's setting back up. You've got this pivot at 164.5 and also this close here at 158.82 as potential pivots. So look set up for next week. I'll be watching this. This is on my focus list. And once again, a great example of look at all these pocket pivot volume signatures during this, before this huge run. Look at all this up the right-hand side. Then it pulled back to the 50, shook some people out under this pivot, and then just took off. So a lot of volume coming in here, a lot of down volume as well during the base, but there is a lot of signs of institutional accumulation in here. And look at the moving average. It just really increased rapidly. No, it's all good, Jack. It's all good, Jack. Jack works full time, so he's forgiven. Let's see. Let's keep going on the list. I lost it. Here we go. HEC. I don't like this. Under $10 looks. Not my cup of tea. Infu. Above all the key moving averages. I don't know anything about this company, but needs to tighten up a little bit before I would consider entry. You've got pivots here. Copen, this looks pretty good. I'm watching this next week. I got stopped out for a small loss, then a small gain last week. It squatted twice on the breakouts. So you got to be quick with this one. But if it gets going, it's shown the capability of really advancing quickly. And look at all these huge volume accumulation bars. So far, if it tightens up, and volume decreases, that would be awesome. Right above 10, it's been holding that. So that's definitely a level to watch, or this downward trend line on strength. Yeah, sure. I'll cover Etsy. So Etsy, I tried it in here, got taken out. I think I sold my position either half or all of it on this day, and then if I did have some of the rest, I sold it on this day as it continued to break the 50. But excuse me. This is a little bit wide and loose. I don't like the look of this bar, although it wasn't below average volume, but it's retaking the 50 now. A lot of the former leaders are acting well. I think the fundamentals are still strong. If we go over here to Etsy, not the largest estimates, but you have some really really fantastic quarterly earnings reports here. Earnings 300%, sales 100%. I mean, that's huge growth, really impressive growth. Great fund ownership increases, and 4 high-quality funds. So apart from the estimates here, I mean, this stuff is superb. This is awesome. This is great, and this is great as well. The price action just needs to tighten up. Maybe it pulls back to the 50 SMA. Just trying to draw here on light volume, and then moves up through this pivot, that might be a good spot to get it. Let's see. Let's go back to TC2000 and keep on going. Lulu, still basing, not really on my focus, although it does have to get above here and the 50 before it can break out to all-time highs. So those are some levels to watch. I don't like this volume coming in. And so far, it's just basing for quite a while now. So Dr. Wish, my professor, would say, start looking at it when it breaks this level. MOS, Mosaic, pulling back to the 50 on not below average volume, but tightening up a little bit on this moving average. All the moving averages are pretty tight here. Yeah, not too bad. Pretty far from all-time highs, I believe. So you've got some overhead supply to deal with. Nets, this is forming kind of a low cheat area here, still basing, but that is a potential early entry up the right side of the base. You've also got some pivots right here at that high and also this prior close. But overall, starting to shape up, higher low here, tightness, not low volume, but we'll see what can happen. I believe they're still growing sales at about 50% the last time I checked. So not yet profitable, but definitely a disruptive business. And you can see it's actually supposed to be profitable in 2022, and the estimates are increasing. So we'll be watching this to see if it can really blow out expectations. But overall, that's kind of the level I'm watching, and also the 50 SMA right there. David asks, what is a low cheat area? How do you spot them? Basically, it's a spot. It's a Markman intervening term. It's a spot in the lower third of the base, and it's a kind of a consolidation, and then you have a clear pivot. So it's like a handle in a cup and handle, but it happens in the lower third of the base. What stage base is DocuSign in? Let's go over here. It might have undercut the base, or they don't even label this as a consolidation, or maybe pattern rec is just taking a little bit. Let's go to the weekly. So I think it will be a stage 2 if it forms a base, I believe. But look at the RS rating, it's a 50. It hasn't really gone anywhere in 8 months or so. Let's go back. Okay, on, I believe this, yep, semiconductor, pulling back nicely to the prior pivot on below average volume. A lot of these are set up like this. We'll see if it can make a group move in the next few weeks, but looks pretty good. I personally don't have too much expertise on what's the best semiconductor company. I can just look at the growth numbers in Marketsmith. But other than that, you can always play SMH to capture the group move, or if you want a 3x move, you can do SOXL. And these are both forming kind of cup and handle patterns here, although this is only a 4 days consolidation. PLTR, once again, very low within the base, but you've got a little bit of a very low cheat, very, very low cheat, and it's about 50% from all-time highs. So not really on my focus list. We'll see if it can challenge these highs and maybe build up a consolidation around 35, 40. That's when I would start getting interested in this. Yeah, TDOC's a good one. So this is also forming a consolidation, but it's so far from all-time highs that this is more of kind of the traditional bear flag. And if you look at the volume, it is tightening up recently and on lower volume, but look at all these huge red bars. That to me doesn't tell me it's under accumulation. Back here, you've got some blue spikes, and during the uptrend you had blue spikes, but the largest volume has been red and it hasn't held prior levels. If we go to the base pivot, it tried to find support here, then failed at the 50-day, and now it's back at the low of the base. So this isn't kind of my spot to get in. I know some people like buying these base lows, undercuts, and rallies. That's not kind of my game. I like buying the stocks that are trending above the 21 EMA, breaking out of bases, buying on strength. So that's not really in my focus. RADA looks like it's right near this high. This bar is a little suspect because it finished right near the open pretty much on huge volume. So actually kind of distribution versus accumulation here, but it has moved up on Thursday and Friday, and maybe if it goes sideways a little bit, then challenges, that would be good. But this bar does put me off a little bit. But let's take a look at the fundamentals. I think I looked at the stock recently. So very strong fundamentals, really, really great estimates for 2021. Not really any fund ownership or quality fund ownership. So that's one drawback. And it's kind of a low price stock in general. So yeah, I'll watch to see if it breaks out, and maybe then. It's also a very, very small company. My wheelhouse is usually 2 to 30 billion versus under $1 billion. Rail, this looks like a very low, yeah, $12 volume stock, and that's really just because of this recent action. So not really in my wheelhouse. Under $6, I'll pass on that one. SID, just a breakout on volume, looks pretty good. Prior uptrend. Let's take a look at the monthly. Below all-time highs though, so one drawback there is some overhead supply, but overall the trend is pretty strong. Just reading some questions here. Sorry, just trying to read the chat and see if there's any questions. Is love too extended? I know Jack is in this one, and it had a really nice breakout on this Friday. I believe there's a lot of short interest on this one. So for me, it's too extended. If you're buying the breakout, you got to be buying the pivot. You also have a 2-2 reversal through this high along the right-hand side. And I would say it's too extended if it's 2% above this pivot, and I think it is because it was up 14%. So for me, you have to wait for another entry. And we saw earlier, I forget what stock it was, but stocks break out and often retest the pivot. So just because it breaks out without you doesn't mean you can't enter the stock at another low risk buy point, which is the best way to trade. You have to wait for those low risk buy points to manage your risk. If you buy here just hope, that's not a strategy. You have to wait for a proper setup. VCell, I haven't looked at that one recently. Let's take a look here. Nice volume here, gap up. Let's take a look at the monthly. So turnaround story, not too bad. Strong trend. All these months are up in a row, so it's showing a lot of strength there. Yeah, I probably this would have been the spot to get in, and then you might have gone shaken out here. Or yeah, there's less than 5% down this pivot. So I'm looking at this high as the pivot. But yeah, you could use a 2-2 reversal here, or this, but it's not a clean breakout anymore. But a nice consolidation tightness right here and huge volume coming in. I don't know what they do. Let's take a look. Oh, huge estimates right here. So they develop human cell products using cell therapy or regenerative medicine. So maybe they're like a CRISPR or a Fate or there's one other one. Maybe you guys know it, but there's one that trades just like CRISPR. It had a really nice high tide flag earlier. Let's take a look. CRSP. Let's take a look at the weekly. It's not coming up. Oh well, you guys might know it. Yeah. So let's go. SM tight. Energy company. Pretty tight against the key moving averages. That doesn't look too bad. Snap. No, it's not NLTA. I'll remember it. Snap looks good. I'm watching this pivot to see if it can kind of form a consolidation here, then break through. TGNA, a little far from the moving averages now. This would have been the spot to get in. Nice 3-bar break here. Tiger. Yeah, it's edit. That's what I was thinking of. Awesome. Thanks, guys. I'll make a video about real measured volatility in a little bit. But I want to make sure I tweaked it right and I like the end result. So Tiger looks pretty good. Once again, this is a low cheat, so very low within the base. You do not have to buy this early. You can. It's probably a higher probability setup to buy the real cup and handle, the real breakout. But if you're accumulating stock, if you have an entry from down here, this is potentially an add-on point if you're really interested in this stock. Tilray, downtrend below the key moving averages, not really my cup of tea. Unity, same thing. You do have a pivot here. It's kind of like Corsair. Oh, what is that? I don't even know what that is. That's what I wanted. You've got a pivot right here. It's kind of like Corsair that's pulling back on below average volume. but still needs time. We'll see if it can dry up and start a right-hand side of this base. But this huge volume on the down days just puts me off, and it kind of precedes this huge drop down a further 30, 20%. Uber on my focus list, nice and tight against the moving averages. Maybe it tightens up a little bit more, pulls back once again. But overall, you've got some pivots here at this high, and also this high right there. United Foods, I've been watching this one really tight last week. I almost put it on my focus list, but overall, let me draw. There you go. Nice breakout here, pocket pivot volume, and now pretty much going sideways. So still potentially actionable through this high or an undercut and reclaim of this key moving averages. But once again, nice accumulation signs, really powerful move here. And I believe that's a longer term base. So yeah, this is a longer term consolidation. It is still pretty far from all-time highs, but overall looks pretty good. And last we've got VHI, and to go back to a daily, you can see it's in a longer term downtrend. So that's one knock against it. I like stocks trading at all-time highs. Just the supply and demand characteristics are more in your favor there, because if you draw an anchored VWAP, everybody who bought here or really anywhere here are at a loss. So there's just more sellers out there to halt the stock and push it back down when it gets back to those levels of interest. So that's why I like trading stocks at all-time highs. Yeah, Snap. I talk about it in my weekly watch this video, but I'll go through it quickly. I think I actually did cover it quickly. Very powerful at the bottom, nice volume coming in. It's at this kind of midpoint level, so maybe a pullback here, consolidation, I'm hoping, and then potentially a buy through the consolidation, or this high, which is at 64.07. So that's what I'm watching for, but I like overall the social media stocks. Snap looks good, Twitter, pretty strong as well. Pins, I'm looking to see if you can form a nice handle here. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm watching. Anchored VWAP is the average volume weighted average. It's the volume weighted average price anchored to a specific date. So this level here, this anchored VWAP represents it's basically the average price that people paid for since this point. So it's a very significant point. You want to put this at significant levels, earnings gap ups, swing lows, swing highs, and that gives you a sense of what people who bought up here in this area, are they at a profit or a loss? And you can see right here, when it pushed through the anchor VWAP, it really got going. So that's kind of what the VWAP pinch is. I'm sure you guys, if you follow Pattern Profits, he's posted a lot of great charts on that. I'm still learning about this, but yeah, I hope to interview Brian Shannon and get his take and get him to explain it himself. But definitely follow Pattern Profits and also Brian Shannon on Twitter, who's at Alpha Trends. If you want to learn more about this, he's got some great resources about it. Thanks, TMC. Always nice seeing your comments. Thanks for the support. Yeah, Yeti, longer term base here. You can draw the downward trend line. Broke out last week. Nice volume coming in. Let's see what the fundamentals look like. So overall, right near this base pivot, 80.89 is the standard pivot. You've got nice earnings growth. You've got summer coming up, so maybe there's a catalyst there. Nice estimates for, excuse me, 2021 and 2022, increasing fund ownership and 3 high-quality funds. So looks pretty good. I believe it's trading right near all-time highs. So this to me is a much better look than a stock that is a turnaround story where the high's up here and everybody who bought on the way down, if the stock manages to push back up to that price, sell to break even, pushing that back down. So I like stocks trading near all-time highs, and this is a stage 2, which is perfectly fine. You have the first stage 1 consolidation back here. Let's see. PUBM, let's take a look at that, and we'll look at Adobe in just a second. So PUBM, I believe, what do they do? I've looked at them before. Something with data and advertising. Great earnings. Maybe they're kind of like a TDD or MGNI, but obviously I'm no expert here, but really strong earnings growth, sales growth, really nice reports here, recent IPO. Not great estimates, but decent estimates for 2022 after it's supposed to lose 23% of EPS here in 2021. Decent composite rating. this amount of funds in here and one high quality fund. So not too bad. Tightening up a little bit erratic here. These tails here bother me, but overall tightening up a little bit. This probably would have been the spot to get in. You've got, let me hide the anchored VWAP here for a second. If you look at the base, it starts the base here. You're waiting for a tightness consolidation, ideally against key moving averages. It starts to get tight here, moves up a little bit, fails again, has a nice upside reversal. So if you're fast enough, you could have used maybe an undercut and rally here at this low, or an undercut and rally here, a gap down and move through this low is called an oops reversal. And that would have gotten you into the stock. It also retakes the 50. That could have been another buy point or add-on buy point. And now it's moved up, good volume. So this is another buy point here if you missed it, right there. And now it's finding support at the 50 SMA, which is a good character change. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, starting to build out the right-hand side. But once again, you're a little bit early here. Let's see if it tightens up against the moving averages and breaks out here above the kind of these highs and approaches all-time highs once again. Let's see. Let's take a look at Wayfair W. So this is a pretty erratic chart, but it is tightening up really and actually quite noticeably along the right-hand side. So a lot of people tried these breakouts, got shaken out, but it's tightened up nicely within 4% these ranges. So this is really tight, potentially an undercut and rally of these moving averages. You could buy through these pivots on strength. There's a lot of ways to play this, but I think I've heard stories that they're way on back order. There's a lot of demand here. Earnings very, very strong, sales strong. Not good estimates for 2021, but really good estimates for 2022. And nice increase in fund ownership and actually 4 high quality funds in there. So yeah, pretty good institutional support here. Alex, PLTR, we already talked about. You got to rewind the video if you want to see that. But yeah, I already covered that. DIS, Disney, nice and tight against the 50 SMA. So yeah, definitely if you want to, this is a decent spot to, decent risk reward to buy. You could buy against that moving average, use these as the lows. And this is actually pretty tight, 3%, even to this low from this point is less than 5%. So yeah, I believe this is near all-time highs. Yeah, looks pretty good. Tight against that moving average. Yeah, Adobe, let's take a look at that. So longer term base, kind of like DocuSign, hasn't gone too far in a while, but it is near this kind of pivot. It is straight off the bottom, so maybe it forms out a consolidation before breaking out to these all-time highs. But overall looks pretty decent here for the short term. It does worry me that it hasn't really been able to take out this high in quite a while. Let's take a look at what their earnings numbers look like, earnings and sales. So solid, consistent growth. Margins are very strong. Good estimates, increasing fund ownership, and 4 high-quality funds. So they're kind of a slower mover, blue chip name. But yeah, not a bad spot if you can break through this level finally, and finally above 536. That would be a pretty good spot to get in. Kosh asks, what moving averages do I use? I use the 4 EMA with this pale orange one, the 10 simple, this blue one, the 21 exponential here, this purple one, and the 50 SMA, this blue one as well. Let's take a look at in mode. That's a good one. So this was on my list a few weeks ago before it broke out and looks pretty good. Trending above that 4 EMA. Had a little bit of trouble on this day, finishing right near the open after trying to move up, but overall it was on lower volume, so maybe it needs to pull back here to the kind of standard flat base type pivot here, which would be a pullback about 4%, then find support there and move up from there. But overall doing nothing wrong, right near all-time highs. Nice fundamentals here, as Ross knows, I'm sure. And yeah, nice earnings, good sales, nice estimates, increasing fund ownership, and 1 high quality fund in there as well. So it looks pretty good. Let's see. I use the 4 EMA, but really the actual numbers here, it's just, these are only areas of interest. These are not hard and fast rules that a stock has to abide by a certain moving average. You have to look to the past to see if a stock has previously respected an area. But really, these are just areas of interest. You can use a 5 simple, you could use a 5 exponential, you can use a 20 simple versus a 21 EMA. All of them are going to kind of give the same idea and trend. You just have to find some good short term, some good intermediate term, and also longer term as well, so you can identify that trend. Starbro asks, how much exposure do you give to any one sector in your portfolio? Like, for example, if semiconductors are doing well, would you hold multiple semi stocks or just pick one? I probably would hold more than one. I probably wouldn't want my entire portfolio to be semiconductor. I'd try to kind of pick one stock from every potential leadership group. So right now, social media, semiconductors, crypto stocks are doing pretty well. SI, Mara, Riot, those stocks. And also, I'm leaving out one other, social media, semiconductor. It'll come to me. Let's take a look. Fintech, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah, so I try to have one stock from each of those potential leadership groups, or more than one if more than one are acting really well. Let's see, Zim is a good one to look at. This is a potential leader, acted really well. You had a descending trendline breakout here on this day, 3-bar break. Then it went tight and sideways again, or relatively tight here. Excuse me. Then it had a pivot breakout here, a nice inside day and up as well, 3-bar breakout of this pivot. Then a nice retest here. So it's trading really well. It's doing what you would expect. You also have some potential entry points here during this previous consolidation. This is still within its IPO advance phase, and it's already gone up 200%. Yeah, I would just be careful with this because it's going to be a little bit more volatile. And I believe, reading Kathy Donnelly's book, most stocks undercut this at some point. But we'll see if Zim kind of breaks the mold here. But a lot of stocks have a strong prior run, and then base and consolidate. This could do kind of what Corsair did, where it has a nice, strong run, and then a longer term base. So at some point, this stock is going to need to base. It's not going to keep going up forever. Not every stock is an AYX, where it just goes up for 3 years. But even then, you can see bases along the way. So yeah, that's what I'm kind of expecting with Zim. It's acting really well and trading very strongly. ABNB, I talked about at the very beginning, Miguel. If you... Yeah, ABNB, I talked at the very beginning, so maybe in the replay you can go back and watch that. I talk about that ABNB, EXPE, and kind of some other reopening plays. Yeah, SQ, PayPal are in the payment space. Yeah, let's take a look at AI, which was a stock I was interested in right here as it tried to maybe take out these highs. But I think I got stopped out somewhere in here, either here or here. And it's doing what a lot of IPOs do. It corrects, undercuts that IPO price, and is forming out the longer term primary base that a lot of them need to allow those institutions to do their due diligence. And then once they're ready, if we pick up crowd, you can see it had a nice IPO advance phase. Then it corrected for quite a while, and then it starts moving up the right-hand side and starts its more kind of mature run, the institutional advance phase. So that's kind of what's going on with AI. The other one was Dash, which is already forming that primary base. A nice move on Friday, but once again, this is very, very early. You do not need to catch the bottom of a base to make money. You can wait until it challenges these highs. But overall, I like the volume here and here. It already undercut the low here. And let's take a look at their fundamentals. I don't know if they actually have earnings. They have good sales growth, not really profitable just yet, not supposed to be profitable, although getting there in 2022. But yeah, this is too early for me. I'd wait until it really forms out a base and yeah, tightens up. I think I'm only going to do one or two more because I have to go. But yeah, Sid, I already talked about GRWG, but I'll talk about FI. Tightening up here, just kind of trending down below the 50, not doing much of anything. So yeah, I'll have an alert on this, but I like the volume coming up here, but it hasn't really done much. So we'll see if it can finally break out above this pivot. I'll set an alert right there. Actually, I don't think I talked about GRWG. Let's do that quickly. So similar to Futsu, a nice move on Thursday, then a really quality inside day on lower volume. You could buy through this pivot, although that would be kind of quick. Maybe some more consolidation, pull back to the 50-day moving average on lower volume. That would be ideal. And then finally a challenge of this high, then this high, and then this high would be great. Last one, let's do Roku. And so some of the former leaders, because this is a former leader, are already above their 50-day. That's kind of my focus, like pins. But Roku is kind of in the middle ground where it has made a decent move off its lows, good volume coming in. It just needs a little bit more time. Maybe it goes sideways below the 50. But once it really bursts through the 50 on volume, that's when I'll start to keep watch of this one and see if it can break out above these key levels. It just has some work to do. If we go to this, it's about 20% from all-time highs. So no rush. This is still kind of in the lower half of the base. So it still might need some time. So somebody's asking about my top 3 subs for the week. Yeah, I talk about that in my weekly watches video, so go ahead and check that out. Lastly, yeah, Scott is saying 4 looks like AOX. Yeah, it does look hard to trade. It just goes up and down, up and down. Yeah, if you compare this 4 chart to what AYX looked like, very choppy, even though it had very strong returns, up 870% since IPO. It's not an easy one to hold. Yeah, let's finish with CELH. So overall, you had a large gap down within the base on earnings, but let me hide this for a second so you can see the price action. You had a gap down, but a close off the lows on high volume. So my view is institutions were involved here, and this is kind of what I learned from George Kachuk, the U.S. investing champion of 2020, the money manager division. He likes looking at this close and views that as a pivot, and you can see it retook it as back near the 50 now. So if it can, kind of similar to Roku, if it can retake that on volume, I'll be interested. See if it can form out, tighten up, pull back, and offer a good spot to get in. Yeah, I think we'll end it there. Thank you guys all for tuning in. It's awesome to have you. I'll try to do this every week if possible. Thanks everybody who came in. Sid, Scott, good to see you guys. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. Jack, if you're still watching, go ahead and watch my weekly watches video, catch up. But yeah, have a great rest of your weekend, guys, and take care. Bye-bye.